Welcome to Eye of the Care Storm, where we give real voices to leaders of the care industry.
Because care can be hard. Shifts run long, storms hit fast, but right in the middle of the storm, at the eye, there is calm. That's what we're crafting here together as we spread the wisdom of care leaders today.
So, my name's Chris and co-hosting with Claire today. And today we've got our guest, Stacey Shepherd, who we'll bring on in just a moment. She has 20 years of experience in the care industry. She has had 12 of those years in a leadership position. She's been registered manager, nominated individual, director. She's also founded Care Quality Group in 2019, which is all about helping providers do the right things in the right way. And just last year, she bought Responsive Care Group, which has one mission only, and that's to build a service where quality comes first and creates real outcomes for the people that she serves. Welcome, Stacey. Welcome to Eye of the Care Storm. We really want to grab all your wisdom today, and Claire's going to run off with the first question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chris. And thank you, Stacey. It's a delight to have you here today. So I'm going to cut straight to the chase. What got you into care leadership?
So when I left school, I've always been, I'm told, very intelligent, but I didn't do very well at school. I could have done much better had I have gone into all of my lessons and very studied very well. But I went into an apprenticeship for a care role and very quickly passed that MVQ level 3, moved on into adult services. And I've always been very driven. So it was about, can I do extra? Can I have more responsibility? It was, fantastic going out and taking people and supporting people in the community. But I wanted to look at the things like the risk assessments, the support plans, kind of help with rotas. So I was always saying to my manager, can I have a little bit more? I'll come in and help do admin at the weekend. I'll come in and help do this. And so it was all about me constantly asking for that extra responsibility. One, because I'm very driven, but also because I knew I never wanted to stand still. A lot of people are very happy being support workers, and that's great. We need those people with those skills, but I always wanted to move on one step. I was always thinking about how can I move on? What can I do? Never knew what my long-term goals and aims were, but by having that drive, it's led me to where I am now. So yes, it's I suppose about me being a bit of a control freak as well. I want to know exactly what's going on and why and where and that started in the early days. Yeah.
Where
We
would you
need,
say,
oh,
sorry, where
sorry,
would you
Chris.
say that hunger, because there's a lot of drive in there for care.
Yeah.
Where would you say that hunger comes from? Is there a moment, a situation where you felt that?
Um, I was very fortunate that that first manager, where I was given a lot of roles and responsibilities and additional workload, I was introduced to her by her sister who worked with my mum. So there was already some kind of like connection there. So I felt confident and happy to be able to go to her to say, can I have a bit extra to do? Are you happy for me to do this? So I suppose without looking back, maybe without that connection and that approachability of her, I probably wouldn't have been as easily led into the management
Yeah.
area. Yes, yeah.
And that's a really important point. So thank you for pulling on that thread, Chris, because it is, what enables you. And you've sort of said about that approachability then. So what would you say now you are a very successful and established leader is and has been the philosophy that underpins how you lead, how you manage your team, and the culture that you try to create? You said about you came into it because it was someone that you knew and you felt very comfortable. Has that influenced your leadership style and the philosophy that you've embedded?
My leadership style from 2001 when I first left school, 2002, 3 when I first got into the additional responsibilities has changed significantly. I used to be very much a first registered manager's role, that was very influential in my career. I was very dictatorial. It was very much about it must be done this way, micromanaging. I would be in the service at 7 o'clock in the morning, might not leave until 9 o'clock at night. And now, yes, I'm still very heavily involved, but I'm not as dictatorial, as it were. It's a bit more, let's sit back. Everybody's got their own style. Me micromanaging doesn't get the task done any quicker, any better, because in actual fact, if you want it done my way, they might not be able to achieve it in my way. As long as you can get from A to Z, that's all we need. So yes, historically it was very much about you do the work, I'm then going to check your work. You've not done it. Whereas now it is much more about being approachable, helping people learn from the mistakes. Yes, there's always a hierarchy within a company, within any organisation. Of course there is, but I don't know everything. I'm not the best one to say it must be done this way. Everybody's got different ideas. And now I'm much more open, and it's about being friendly with your team, being approachable, because they're much more likely to then come to you and say, oh, actually, Stacey, I think this is a better way of doing it. That's, great. I want you to come to me. You're the people who are out there on the ground. I'm not the one there doing that all day, every day. And if I think I know what's best, that's not always the best. Yeah.
That's great. And sorry, Chris, just before you come in, 'cause I know that Chris is keen to ask some questions as well, and I will hand over to you in a second, Chris. But so do you think that that's because certainly when I went into leadership, that's almost what I perceived what a leader was, that you were somebody that was dictatorial, and there was an expectation that everybody's looking to me and I must always have the answer. So do you think your styles come as you become more confident as a leader, your own leadership style, so you don't feel you have to prove yourself to everyone else as a leader? You can be comfortable to say to your team, actually, I don't know everything about that, and actually you know more about that than I do, and you pull together the very best brains. So do you think that change in style has come with your confidence, that you've actually almost found, so the style that you're portraying now is the true you finally found your own style?
Yes, yeah. And I think as well, when you first go into a registered manager's position, it's about management and leadership are very different, aren't they? I don't need to manage people day to day. I need to lead them, guide them, and bring them on the journey with us. And I think that's where I differ now. Before, I thought in order to prove myself as a manager, things must be done in a certain way, and I've got a job description, I've got somebody else who I'm reporting to, so I must be able to say I've done this and I've achieved that. So again, I think over the years, and I suppose just life experience, just getting older in your years, you can't always do everything for everyone all of the time. Yeah, it's definitely when I think back how I used to be, very different now. Yes. Yeah.
And just on that as well, would you say that the care outcomes are also improved as you've had this switch in leadership style?
Yes, because the staff are happier, the staff are more content. Also they feel empowered, that just because I'm not out there telling them what to do, they can make decisions, they can make choices, they can do what they feel is right and has the best outcome for the people we're supporting. Whereas I know historically it would have been, no, I need to phone Stacey, it's 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, and check, can we do it that way? If you think it's going to have the best out, and if it doesn't have the best outcome, or you've not made the right decision, we'll talk about that on Monday morning and we'll reflect on it and what are we going to do different next time. It's not about me telling you you did that wrong and this is what you must do next time. Let's think about what we need to change next time.
I think, yeah, that's a real huge part, that sort of gap analysis part, right? That
Yeah.
reflection piece to make sure it's that little micro improvements as a habit. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But as part of your role now, then, is there a part of your role as you've taken on this new domiciliary company that demands you to be superhuman? And when you're not, it could be trouble. Is there a part of that role for you right now?
I suppose with most registered roles with CQC, because there's always that ultimate cloud above your head, that responsibility on your shoulders, you never, I don't think, switch off 100% ever, because there is always in the back of your mind, if something goes wrong, yes, if you can have all the evidence in place to say we've done this and we haven't, but worst case scenario, and when I was doing consultancy work for inadequate services and things like that, I used to say and keep reminding people, worst case scenario is we could go to prison. As somebody who is registered and by the regulator, that is obviously worst case scenario. So that's always in the back of your mind, that
Yeah.
I've got to get things right. And I suppose that comes down to the leadership style, what you're doing with your team, how you're guiding your team, what confidence you have in your team, so that at least you may not 100% switch off ever, but you can 99.9% be able to switch off at some point. I think that's my biggest thing, the legal accountability side, and now juggling business as a business owner, as well as even previously when I've been a director of services and nominated individual. It's not actually been my business. I've not owned it. So now it's very different. You have to wear lots of different hats daily. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you say you manage that now, as you've brought on the domiciliary? How have you learned to manage that? Because that is a lot of responsibility to take on. And I think
Yeah.
it'd be great for other care leaders to hear how you've found
Yeah.
ways to manage that.
A big I suppose support for me has been having my husband on board with the business as well, because I've got the regulatory, the care experience. I've done this for many, many years. David's ran his own businesses in other areas. So he kind of manages the account side of things. He manages all the banking, anything that comes through that is not CQC related, is not local authority contract related. I say, David, can you deal with that? So having that person to be able to take those bits has been a huge help and a support for me, and also having him to talk to about things. But he very much likes to say, I'm not going to be involved operationally. I don't want to know too much, because the more I know, the more I then get engrossed and ingrained in the day-to-day operations. I need to sit on the outskirts to be able to manage these things, to look at the business and be working on the business rather than in the business. That's a big thing that David talks about.
Love
Whereas
that.
I'm day to day in the business, and that's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such an important point that care leaders also need that support around them, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
not,
absolutely.
yeah, it's a very human thing to admit. Everyone needs that, right? The support, the
Yeah.
leaders that they do the best have that support around them. Would you say that there's a leadership thing that you've done, or a moment in leadership where something that you changed and it's really improved someone's life, whether that's a team member, whether that's someone that you provide care for, but something you switched in a moment of leadership?
Well, I suppose, and I might not necessarily be answering the question correctly, Chris, but thinking back to one of my roles, when I did become to slacken off slightly, there's a lady who had worked in, there was actually 4 registered services on the same site. They were all managed by individual managers, and a particular team leader in another service had gone through a disciplinary process. Her manager wasn't happy with her, and I actually said, I can see a lot of potential in her. And it is about the way that you lead and you mentor and you guide someone. And I said, let's transfer her and move her to our service. And she came on leaps and bounds. She effectively became a deputy manager for me. We used to sit in a very, very tiny office. I don't even know how it managed to fit 2 of us in it. But I think that's also what helped her in her career. She was a huge support to me as well, just having that person there. And I'll say even now, I could, well, we have already had brief discussions about, now we own RCG, what does she think? And this is going back to 2013 is when I left that particular service where she was my deputy manager. and she's moved with me 2 or 3 times since. And still now, she would, if I said to her, "Would you like a job?" she would say, "You don't even have to ask the question." And we've been through ups and downs with businesses. Businesses have gone through, liquidation. We've been made redundant.
Yeah.
But she would still now, and uh, she's always been a huge support to me as somebody within the management team. And again, we've got a very good relationship in the sense that if she doesn't agree with me, she'll tell me that she doesn't agree with me. We can be friendly with each other.
Yeah.
But I think had I have not given her that chance and not worked with her in that certain way, I'm not sure she'd be where she is now in her career.
Yeah. That's such an awesome thing to have with someone, that level of trust. That's someone,
Yeah,
someone who's got your back like that. That's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is, and I think that then, if it's all right, Chris, then if you unless you had anything else to say at
No,
the
no, no.
moment, all right, to carry on. I didn't want to talk over you. And I just want to pick you up on a couple of things there, Stacey, really important things. First of all, I am going to be grumpy with you about when you said that when I slackened off, because I'm sure that's not what you did. What you did there, and people often, that's what very good leaders do, is actually you gave autonomy to somebody else. You
Yes.
gave somebody else permission to take autonomy. And also what I'm hearing both with when you said about the roles that you and your husband have, and then the roles with your latterly that you just described with your colleague, is there's clear delineations of who does what.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the thing. And then the final piece of effective leadership that I had that Chris just, which is why I wanted to jump in and not tread on Chris's toes, but to say is when he said about having that trust, but also there's the need for trust, but then the fact of, but also there can also be conflict, but actually you're comfortable with conflict because you can talk to each other. And that's absolutely essential because you have to be confident with members of your team that they can turn around to you and say, well, actually, Stacey, no, because this wouldn't work in this particular shift pattern, or this wouldn't work here, or but have you thought of it that way? And of course, we do it in a professional and diplomatic way. But what good leaders shouldn't do is go in and then just dictate to people continually and then them leave the meeting going, well, that'll never work, because then they
Yeah.
won't embody it. Whereas growth and change comes from the things that I'm hearing that you did, that you empowered your team member, so then they became like, they felt an equal colleague with you, so you could have those open, frank results, and everyone's going to benefit. And most importantly, the individuals that we're supporting will
Yeah.
benefit most importantly, and everybody's really clear about their roles and responsibilities, and that's really absolutely key. So you said so I just wanted to take a moment just to really acknowledge those excellent leadership qualities that you highlighted in that example, that I don't want people to miss, because that's really important. So now I'm going to take us on then to the sharp reality and ask you to give us, an example if you can. So one time when you really feel like a leader and you think, yeah, this is what I've tried. This is a Stacey that came in and thought, no, I'm not settling for that. I really feel for a leader now. And one of these rare occasions, but then another time when you feel like a firefighter. So if
Uh,
you could just share one where you're really soaring like a leader and other times, and what are the constitute parts that are around that?
so I suppose when I feel most like a leader is when I've got time to sit with the team to be able to find out what it is that they need from me, how I can help them, and I've got true time to be able to sit with them without doing what makes me feel like a firefighter. But that dedicated time, them having the opportunity to come to me and say, Stacey, have you thought about that? Stacey, how can we work on this? Me be able to say, oh, this is how I would do something. Um, that's that's the undisturbed time, I suppose, when I can actually sit with people. That's when I feel most like a leader. I'm not just, sending out emails and being dictatorial, looking through the emails of the 303 that when I came back to work on Monday, oh my goodness, how many emails have I got to respond to? But do they actually need responding to as well? That's a firefighting moment. Um, and when the team are happy and when we're having those conversations, they are happy and confident to be able to challenge me. When I'm just sat there and I'm talking at someone, it's quite clear that we haven't got that relationship yet, and that's about building that. How do I get to that point? Because all they're doing is sitting and nodding and going, yes, Stacey, no, Stacey, 3 bags full, Stacey. Whereas when we end up having that challenge, I know I'm at that point where I've got a good relationship and I can now lead, guide, and coach them, and they're going to feel that they can come to me and ask questions as well.
Fantastic. So let me go back, pull on the thread then, and I'm sure we'll come up with other firefighting examples as the conversation goes on. But I'm going to go back to the point about you said about it's when you have that moment. So Chris and I are going to hold your feet to the flames now. So if you actually imagine had 3 calm hours, remember this is all about in the eye of the care storm, then in that calm, in the eye of the storm, if you had 3 hours, what change would you make to your service, to your organisation?
Oh, I suppose that would be more one-to-one time with those, the other people within the management team. And if it was 3 calm hours a week, then I would look at, so 3 hours next week would be with so and so, 3 hours the week after, and ask them what they need my help and support with. Because if they're helped and supported and guided, ultimately that's going to have better impact for the business and better outcomes for the people that we're supporting. So it would be about them guiding it, but me giving them those 3 hours that they can then choose whatever they want. Pick my brains. I need help with writing risk assessments, care plans, whatever it is, rotas. They come to me, and it would be away from the office as well, because there's always far too many. As much as you can put a do not disturb on your door, the phone rings and they're like, well, I know she's just in there, so I'll just knock on the door. No, let's go somewhere else, over coffee, sit in Starbucks, whatever it may be, because then people feel more relaxed about the situation, and they're more likely to get something out of it to improve the business. And ultimately, that's about, like I say, outcomes for the people we support.
It is. Thank you very much. And that's always really interesting when you ask that question, because inadvertently you answered it yourself. The fact that, which makes us look about prioritizing, because by your own admission, they're actually prioritizing 3 hours a week to do those one-to-ones will actually improve performance and potentially would minimize 3 hours the next week of people when they're coming to you asking things all the time, or you having to do things. And it's that just us beginning to reshape. And so it's important to ask that question, what would I do? And then say, well, maybe I do need to build that in, even though I haven't got time to do it at the moment. But how much time am I spending firefighting that if I did allocate those 3 hours a week, those issues would still happen, but I wouldn't be on my own doing that. There'd be a team that would be able to support. So thank you. That was a really honest and helpful answer. Chris, over to you.
Just on that, I think that it's that skill of knowing which fires, as it were, you can let burn for a moment so that we can make sure it happens less in the future. Because in the moment, it can feel like that's really urgent, it needs to happen right now. And it's on there. And, there's a lot of emotion attached to that in a care setting, that it really can have a lot of impact. But then letting certain things drift just for a moment while we'll build this solution, make this opportunity happen, so that long term, we're stacking these little improvements to create that consistent care, and ultimately there will be less moments of firefighting overall.
Yeah.
And so my next question, I think you've actually answered this really, was about the additional responsibilities and how you've adjusted to them. I think you've answered those wonderfully. Also wanted to talk about silos and how, if that, if you've experienced teams who have sort of dropped and broken away into silos, and how you've managed to prevent that and your experience in that.
I suppose with dom care, it's very easy to have silos. You've got, different areas, different teams, different lots of lone working as well. Um, and for me, it's about, again, if the management team, the team who I'm working with day to day, if they are confident and comfortable with me and they are picking up the phone to people, it's not always about having to do things. Oh, we've got set team meeting every month, first Monday of every month. Just pick up the phone to people, ask them if they're all right, and what they will ask somebody will be different to what I ask someone. One of the things I'm doing at the moment that I'm going to start implementing from next week is I will pick up. Yes, they'll have supervision with their line manager. Yes, they'll be observed out in the field by a team leader. Yes, they'll speak to me if they really need to. But again, those who are out there think, oh, we only go to Stacey, the director, if it's absolutely, catastrophic. I'm just going to pick up the phone and say, I'm just checking in, how is everything? And they're going to, oh. And some of the team I've got to know really, really well anyway. And they've said, I am very approachable, that I am in group chats with the team. And it's about putting out there. So if we get good news, don't just share it with one person, share it with the whole team. And then if it's Kat, who's the care coordinator, who shared that, I'll jump on the back of it and say, great, that's absolutely fantastic. That's just what we want to see, Stacey. And then they're like, oh, it's about the positives. And don't, if there's a performance issue with an individual person, address it with an individual person. Don't put out a blanket message to everyone because one person is persistently late, because that then means that everybody feels deflated. Just talk to that individual, and make sure that everybody's aware that we are, in this particular role now, we are RCG. We are all a cog in the wheel, and if one of us falls out, the cog, the wheel is no longer turning. We're all in this together. You're as important as I am, whether I'm the director or whether I am a support worker, a care assistant, it doesn't matter. We're all in this together. And again, that goes back to the thing of people being able to approach me and say, oh, Stacey, I've had this really good idea. What do you think about that? Or Stacey, I don't think that is a very good idea. And that's not just with the people that I sit with all day, every day. That is with the carers who are out in the field, because that means that they feel part of the team. They know we are a collective team. That's a big thing for me. Yeah.
I think that's a golden egg, because that level of leadership, that's not, if people feel like they're stuck in this hierarchy, and it can make them, sometimes in cases, make them resent it and potentially quit, right? But when they're getting a check-in from the director of like, hey, how's it going? They feel appreciated by that, and they feel
Yeah.
like they're being looked after, and they want to do better.
Yeah, we had a new team leader start only a couple of weeks ago. We're quite remote where we are, our office, and office usually opens at 8:30. She has got quite a way to travel. Sometimes the A1 is gridlocked and closed, and you end up going off on a diversion. And I just sent her a message saying, I'm just checking that you're all right. You're usually in by 8:30. And she actually sent one back saying, yes, I'm fine. I can't remember exactly what she said, but then she said, it is so nice to work for somebody who was just checking in on me to see that I'm all right. It wasn't a, you're late. It was just because the couple of other occasions where she'd been diverted, she had let me know she was diverted and going to be late. I was worried that because she hasn't told me, is she all right? It wasn't about the being late. It was, is she all right? And she said she really appreciated that. But they're the things that make us a team. And I would like to think they'd message me as well, going, Stacey's normally in by this time and she's not. Is she all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah.
It is. It's great. It's that genuine care, care for your team. So you obviously have a very, good and close working relationship with your team. We're going to sort of extend that feeling a little bit around when new initiatives are introduced. And you said that you've been an incredibly driven person. And I'm absolutely sure that there are times where you've driven forward and you've looked behind and everyone's sort of been left behind because they're not moving at such the pace that you are. So just either retrospectively sharing some examples or where we are today, how do you know when you introduce a new initiative, if the room is quiet, which often it is when you introduce something, because it's the first time people have heard something and it's been living in your head for a long time, and or even over a weekend or an evening or something, it's the first time they've heard it. How do you know the difference between quiet resistance and real buy-in when you introduce that new initiative? And then you go, because you can't be everywhere all the time. You can check in, which is absolutely brilliantly, but what traits do you notice of your team that you've noticed over the years when you've introduced these new initiatives as the driven leader that you are?
I think when you first introduce, if you know the team well enough, obviously here at RCG, I'm still getting to know the team really well. We only took over the business 1st of August. I had been in and out a little bit, but it's picking up on the facial cue, the cues of, oh, are they pulling the face for the right reason? Are they, the body language, sat with their arms crossed? Those things, when you first introduce something, that will give you kind of some indication as to whether they are going to be on board with something or whether they aren't. And I think after that, it's regularly asking the questions, regularly reviewing things, and just having oversight and listening to other team members, because those who are resistant will probably be saying to other team members who are sat on the fence, oh, it won't work because of this, or yeah, but why does she have to change it, because we've always done it that way. I don't see, it wasn't broken, so why does it need fixing, kind of things. But I suppose as well, for me, it's about the staff. It goes back to asking the questions. They'll ask the questions and they'll come to me and say, actually, I think that's a really rubbish idea. Because when you've got that relationship, and they'll say, oh, what about doing it this way? And it just, well, I suppose if they're really resistant, it just doesn't get done, does it? There's always an excuse, there's always a reason. I've been too busy. Don't want to do it like that. Or we have always, it's quicker to do it this way, so that's why we're sticking with doing it this way. You pick those things up, and you know as well which team members are going to be more likely to buy in on, or be more resistant as well.
So listening to that then, and what I'm going to say to you, I know sounds blindingly obvious to you, but it's important for new developing leaders to be hearing this. What environment then do you create to introduce a new initiative? Because how would you do something? Because what I'm hearing is you wouldn't just send all email to everybody going, just to let you know, we're changing this to this to this, and moving forward from next Monday, we're now going to be doing this. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that you're creating an environment. So could you just, in just a couple of sentences, just sort of sum up what sort of environment you create before you introduce a new initiative?
Well, I suppose new initiatives, so some initiatives have to be driven by me, but some are driven by the team anyway. It's like something that's I've recently introduced here at RCG is the care coordinator was talking about the format of supervisions, and that she didn't really like the format. We've got what we call our SMILE values for RCG that we've developed together and that we're implementing. We've got them written on whiteboards all over, but it's about listening to them and then me thinking, what can we do to change that? And then planting seeds as well with the staff. What do we think about doing it this way? Do we think if we did it that way? And then it might need to be me who develops the new system or the process, but we'll have already had conversations about it. It's not just an out of the blue, right, we're changing the whole supervision and appraisal policy, and from tomorrow you're doing this. So like with changing this process, this supervision format. The care coordinator's still done all of the supervisions for this month in the current month's format and introduced to the staff, this is what the format's going to be moving forward. You need to prepare, answer these questions, talk about where you think you sit within our SMILE values. So again, we're implementing our values in everything that we do, but she's not just thrown it out there to the staff either. So it started with her. I've created the right system and right process. It's gone back to her for her to filter out. I'm filtering it out with the management team. So it's about everyone being involved in that decision. Yes, there are some decisions that ultimately have to be made by people of a higher position within the organisation, but you still need people to be involved in what does that look like to get the buy-in, not just the overnight email.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like this continuous rolling conversation from seedling to
Yes. And if it doesn't work, I'll do the supervisions using the template with the management team. The coordinator will do the supervisions with the template with the carers, and then we'll come together and she might say, oh, it doesn't actually work, that format for the carers, but it works well for the management team. Right, but you're constantly trialing then. Never stand still, evolve, change something. If we need to change it, but work together, get her feedback. That moves into what do we change and why do we change it.
Yeah, that's excellent. Love that.
Excellent. Yeah, really, really good. So I'm going to then ask you something about a change that you introduced, I can only assume, or a strategy that you introduced that has made you have a reputation for really good retention of staff. So what transformed your retention strategy then to lead to the excellent results you're seeing now?
I wouldn't say now, Claire, in this particular role. As Chris is aware, we are regularly we're looking at recruitment and retention here, but recruitment is definitely going in the right direction here. But in the past, with regards to retention, I think again it's about that open door policy. It's not about it's not all about pay for people. It's about sell the values, sell who you are, sell to somebody why they want to come and work for you. And as well, what I always say to people as part of an interview, this is as much an interview for you as it is for me, because you need to ask me questions to see whether I'm the right employer. Have I got the right values for you? Am I the right manager for you? Because we tend to forget that, don't we? And if they've got questions to ask me about the business, what are their career progression opportunities, and I answer the right questions for them, and I'm willing to give them the right opportunities, they're then much more likely to stay. But then I have to follow through with those. And if I've made promises that, yes, we will put you on a career pathway to become a team leader, yes, it might not happen because if they haven't got the right skills or they don't quite want to do the right training. But if I've made the promise and I've kept the promise that we will try and put you on that career pathway, then they're all the things, oh, Stacey does what she says she's going to do. Think about people's well-being, think about, people's outside of work. Yes, we've got people to support. Yes, we need calls covering. But in actual fact, if every weekend they're being rang up and they've gone from having 16 visits on their rota to all of a sudden they've got 26, that's nearly doubling their work. They thought they started at 7 in the morning. They're now going to have to go out at 6. They're not getting home till midnight. That's just going to burn them out. We then need to look at how we support them. And Chris is aware, using agency staff at the moment, because I would rather use the agency staff than burn out the staff that we've got, because then we just end up in this churn of they're burnt out, they leave. So let's not put lots of extra pressure on them. We'll still use agency for now, because that minimises the pressure while we are looking at the recruitment strategies, which are going well.
And I think that thank you very much. And I think that when I said about the retention strategy now, I think that I would arguably, with respect, say that actually is because what you're doing is what you've just described to me is you are growing on your experience of retention through an effective recruitment strategy will be building retention. And I think just because you may be needing to use some agency staff now, that actually is an effective retention strategy. Because so while you say that, well, actually I wouldn't say now, I with all the respect in the world would say actually I disagree with you, because I think you are building a really good retention strategy by padding that up and building in a really good recruitment strategy. It's early days, granted, so you can't come here today and say with your relatively new domiciliary venture that, oh, well, we've had staff work, because this has just started over the last few months. But I think that how I've heard you've answered that question about what transformed it is actually you invest as much as, and what I always say that, so it's like value-based recruitment, but also then value-based employment leads to value-based retention. And it's treating people with respect on each of those. And that is what I've heard that you're doing, which I'm sure when you do that. And value-based recruitment and value-based retention means sometimes having to lean on agency staff in the middle while you're growing the most appropriate teams, because just recruiting a lot of people isn't always the most effective way to grow an effective team.
Yeah. And as well, I suppose, like one lady who we have got, she started just before we took over the business, maybe a month or two before. And she's come to us. She's got caring responsibilities outside of her job as well for a grandfather. And she's handed a notice in. And I've had conversations with her, and I've said, you are a fantastic member of staff. We have so many compliments about you. What can we do to support you? What's the reason that you're leaving? And she's like, the hours are too long. I can't do full long days. I was like, you can have half days then, because I want to keep her. I want to support her with her caring responsibilities outside of work as well. And it's not one size fits all, is it? We do have an idea in our mind of a fixed rolling pattern works for a lot of people, but there is the odd person who it's not going to work for. So what can we do to keep her on board, to support her? I don't want to lose her. So yes, we'll make those changes. If that means that if that's the only reason that you're leaving, obviously if they're leaving because they don't like me or they don't like the business, then but hopefully it doesn't get to that ever, because of the things that we're doing and because of the conversations that I'm having with her. And that's where I suppose for me, talking about retention is thinking with the staff in the early days, by having these regular check-in calls that I'm going to be having in future, I can try and pick that up before, ask them the question, are your shifts all right? Is there anything that, because I will then have picked that up and say, what can we do before you hand your notice in? Don't get to that point for us to make the change. They're all the things that we need to build on as well.
Which is absolutely essential. And that's another golden nugget in that you've hit on there. And thank you. So just to applaud you for that before I hand back over to Chris, because so often people wait until someone hands in their resignation, and then probably the day before they leave, if they have an exit interview, it's done by, if you are big enough to have a HR team or somebody who is from a more administrative role, and then it's their exit interview when they're literally 24 hours from walking out of the building that they suddenly say, well, actually, it's just I've got other care responsibilities and the hours are too long, or I'm beginning to struggle, or my bus route has changed now, which means that I just can't do this. And the amount of people that I speak to that turn around and then they go, oh, if only I'd known that beforehand, then we could have done something about it. I wish they'd said something sooner. But what you've done with your regular check-ins as a leader is you're giving them that ongoing that, as Chris referred to it, that, you know, continual communication, that rolling dialogue that enables them to wave a flag, and that they feel safe enough with you to say, look, can I just let you know, actually, my father is getting ill in health, and my needs, I need to spend more time there, or we've moved house and I've, you know, my circumstances have changed, I have to get 3 buses in now. And you can go, right, well, it's not insurmountable, we can work this. So thank you very much for elaborating on that answer, because that's been really useful. Thank you.
It's such a brilliant answer, because it made me think I don't know if you know Adam Grant, he's like a world-class organizational psychologist. He talks about, instead of exit interviews, let's have stay interviews. You know,
Yeah.
before the stuff falls, the dominoes fall and whatever else. So yeah, it's really.
And they're the kind of things, Chris, that I want to ask. You know, let's find the issues early, because if we know about the issue early, we can try and then prevent it from escalating. Yeah.
Great. So we've got one more question for you, and then we're going to start wrapping up here. So the final question here is, what continues to motivate you, Stacey?
I suppose deep down, as I said at the start, I've always been very driven, very motivated. But ultimately, now, having worked in care for, you know, since I left school, pretty much, it is about the people who are out there that, without us, whether I'm sat the owner of a business, whether it's, you know, the care assistant who's actually going into them, without care and support, there would be a lot of very lonely, very unhappy, lots of people with unmet need. I do it, and this is where our smile values came in, because if you can just put a smile on somebody's face for, you know, half an hour in a day, it can have even if it's every day, you know, once a day, whatever it may be, that can have a huge impact in somebody's life. And that's what it's about for me, and that's what drives me. And yes, why sometimes I am still awake at 2 o'clock in the morning with the cogs turning, because I want to make changes and I want to make things better, but it's always for the person who's out there. That's what motivates me. Yeah.
Best reasons it could be.
Absolutely.
I think though, one thing that I do miss about residential roles is you have much more connection on a day-to-day basis with the people who are being supported, and you can see changes. You can places that I've worked, you know, there were expletives that I used to absolutely hate when I was younger, and having worked with people with severe learning disabilities, autism, and gaining a real connection with them, that actually that word doesn't even bother me anymore, because it used to be his favourite word, and he used to run up and down a corridor and call it me on a daily basis. But they're the things that, even now when I'm sat in an office and I don't get to see somebody every day, they're the memories that I think, well, even though I'm not seeing them and they're in their own home, I know that still those things are making an impact. Because like, he used to run up and down the corridor and shout my name and come and nick my bottles of Pepsi Max, but and then he'd sit and he'd look at me and tell me he loved me, and, you know, I'm going to miss you when you go home at the end of the night. And they're the things that still I remember, because they're the differences that our team are making out there, and that's what I want. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'll just sort of summarize a little bit then before handing over to Chris to finish. So, you know, what we've heard, Stacey, is a tale from the beginning to the end, and your constant word that you've used is about driven, and you're still very driven. You're still learning, you're still moving forward, and you've got that intrinsic motivation that drives you, because your same impetus for doing what you want to do remains the same, the individuals that you're working with and the individuals that you're supporting. And I think it's really apparent to, certainly to Chris and I speaking with you and others that listen to this, that even though you don't see those changes directly, actually you're being really instrumental for impacting differences to people's lives by the work that you're doing. And I've often reflected on this, as many leaders do, about that shift from being actually working shoulder to shoulder with the individuals that we're supported to being in a more remote way. And then you think, actually, where are you best placed to make a more valuable contribution? And certainly, Stacey, you've given an absolutely wonderful account of somebody that is not only still driven, but creating a team that is also driven, that is also bringing innovation and initiatives to the work that you're doing. So really what you've managed to do and continue to do in your strive, let's say it, you're a very driven woman, let's say it, for your strive for world domination, Stacey, that let's put it on the table, that actually you're managed to not quite clone yourself, but you've managed to share that. So actually, the one thing that you've realized is actually you can't be all things to all people, but you, rather than being that person that's just one-to-one with the person running up and down the corridor, you can actually reach far more people by empowering the individuals who are the aspiring leaders or the team leaders to be as driven and motivated as you are. So thank you so much for sharing your story from when you first came into care right the way through to not only a leader but a business owner now that continues to grow. So over to you, Chris, for final thoughts.
Yeah, you've been an inspiration, Stacey, and thank you for spreading your wisdom. And this has been absolutely wonderful and a pleasure speaking with you today. And to our viewers as well, just say keep an eye out for the next Eye in the Storm session in around a month or so. But yeah, Stacey, thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting.
Thank you both.